All right, this is chapter 13, and we will be talking about meiosis. Now, meiosis is like a twin of mitosis that we looked at in chapter 12. The purpose of mitosis is for growth, is for regeneration of cells, it's for healing. Um, all right, so the purpose of meiosis, on the other hand, is for reproduction. So now, mitosis is not involved in reproduction at all. And when we say reproduction, we are talking of reproductive cells. So, like I told you in mitosis, that mitosis is nuclear multiplication because it's growth. Um, you notice your hair grows every time. It is because the cells of the hair is dividing. I mean, the cells are dividing, and that is what is leading to growth. One split into two, two split into four, four split into eight, eight split into 16, 16 to 32, 32 to 64 to 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2050, 48. It keeps going that way. And that is the way we grow. That is the difference between the day you were born and who or how big you have become now. It's simply because your cells continue to undergo mitotic divisions. And but meiosis, on the other hand, is nuclear reduction. I told you in mitosis that the product of mitosis are two identical diploid daughter cells. Mitosis, which are general body cells, they have complete set of chromosome, which is 46 chromosome or 23 pairs. Now, on the other hand, you have meiosis, which is reductional division. It's like I use the word nuclear reduction. It's the point when you are reducing a nucleus from a diploid state, which is 46 chromosome, to its haploid state. So the purpose of meiosis, it's simply to reduce. So meiosis reduces a diploid cell to a haploid cell. So that is, it reduces 46 chromosome reduce 46 chromosome to 23 chromosomes, which we see in egg and sperm. That's what we see in egg and sperm. So what you see in egg and sperm, they are reproductive cells that are produced by meiosis. Now you want to think about it. Why are why does meiosis give rise to cells that are haploid? Why are the cells of meiosis haploid? Think about that. It is haploid because the egg and the sperm will later fertilize each other. The egg will fertilize the sperm will fertilize the egg. When the sperm fertilize the egg, they fuse together. We call it fusion. When they fuse together, then the 23 and 23 will end up becoming 46, which is what we call zygote. And the zygote will now keep dividing, and that will lead to what you see. Now, so let's go ahead and discuss it. So what do we have in mitosis? In meiosis, again, meiosis is nuclear reduction. It is the kind of reduction that will give rise to haploid daughter cells. In mitosis, the daughter cells are the same as the parent. In meiosis, they are different. So they are genetically different. They are half of the parent, and there are four products. All right, let's go. Now, lastly, before I go ahead and consider the PowerPoint, in meiosis, in males, 4 active sperms are produced. But in females, 4 products are made, but 1 is the egg, and the 3, we call them polar bodies. So let's go ahead and look at the details now. All right. So the family members you can see in this video have some similar features. The different offsprings resemble their parents more than they do unrelated, more than they do unrelated individuals. Now, I will talk about this later. Let's go. So when you see the parents now, the man produced sperm, which is going to be produced by um, meiosis, reduce his normal body cells to half, so that the woman also does the same thing, and then the two comes together, fuse together, and produce the individuals. Now, why is it that no 2 children are the same? Because meiosis give rise to different in cells. So for this man now, even when he produced 4 different cells at the end of meiosis, the 4 cells, the 4 sperm cells are different. None of the 4 cells are the same. That's one of the reasons we have genetic diversity. That's one of the reasons that no one is the same. Of course, there are other factors which I will still talk about when I talk about gene expression. I'll be talking about splicing, alternative splicing, then we'll get there. But now, mitosis does not give rise to the same. So the sperm is never going to be the same. They have different genetic makeup. Let's go. And of course, the egg is also not going to be the same. So the egg are different and have different genetic makeup. All right. So this is in quote what happened: meiosis and mitosis. I mean meiosis in the parents. So you see, this is meiosis in the father. This is meiosis in another father. Um, so the reason there will always be resemblance between a parent and their child, even if it is minute, there is always going to be alignment or intersections. You see, this is the parent here. By the time they split, it's going to give rise to 4 sperm cells. Of course, like I told you, the sperm cells are not genetically all the same. They have differences, but of course, their root is in the parent cell. So this is the regular parent father's chromosome set. It splits, and by now we have different chromosomes in the sperm, which is half, whereas this is diploid, these are haploid. Now, again, this is the mother, then the products also are here. And like I told you, only one of the eggs are usually the regular egg. The other, we call them polar bodies. Now, offspring acquire genes from their parents, which is what we just looked at now, and we call that heredity. All right. Now, the fact that the traits that we receive from our parents, when I say traits, I mean T-R-A-I-T. Traits. Trait means characteristics. It means features. We don't have the same trait because we have different segments. There is variation in our in the egg or in the sperm that produce every child. So that means there's going to be difference in our trait as well, because our genes are not the same. Now, gene is what I've been mentioning. What is a gene? Now, I want you to be with me very closely. I know why it is simple. Most people are confused about it. So I want to explain it for you never to mix it up again. Now, if you look at this, we look at the word gene. You see the word DNA here. Let me see if I have chromosome on this slide. Very good. I have chromosome on this slide as well. So what's the difference between gene, DNA, and chromosome? Now, chromosome is the whole thing as a whole. It's chromosome. Okay, I have something here for my kids, so I could just use it. So if you look at this is a box of crayon. This whole box is a chromosome. Think about it that way. The whole box is a chromosome. Now, think about it this way, that all of these are connected together. Now, these, I'm going to bring out some and just join them together, okay? Now, think about this. This is a white crayon, this is green, and this is blue. So if they are all together now as just one strand, but they are one strand, but they are different components of the strand. A portion of it, let's say the white, so the whole thing now, like a long stretch of strand, is what we call DNA. So the entire thing is DNA. The big box is chromosome. The segment of nucleotides, which I believe I taught you nucleic acid before, this is called DNA. But a segment of the DNA that is coding for a particular trait is what we call gene. So now this will be a gene. This will be another gene. This will be another gene. But they are all together, and the whole thing is called chromosome, made up of DNA. A segment of the DNA is its gene. So now what is a gene? A gene is a segment. So when you see this now, you know this is the purple there. That is a gene. Gene code for a particular trait. So we could talk about the gene for high color, gene for the texture of your hair, gene for your skin color, gene for your height, gene for your nose, the shape of your nose, gene for the shape of your mouth. A gene code for a particular trait. Is coding for a particular character. Is coding for a particular feature inside of you. So chromosome is the entire thing. So you see, it's most DNA is packaged into chromosome. Now, what is chromosome? Chromosome is actually DNA plus a protein. That's what packs it. The protein packs it. And the protein, we call it histone. Histone protein. Histone is H-I-S. Okay, let me just put that in parentheses here. So this is a DNA. This is what makes a chromosome. A chromosome is actually DNA with histone protein. But a portion of a DNA that is coding for a particular trait is called a gene. So the portion of a DNA, the segment of a DNA. So you see, segment of a DNA is a gene. The segment of DNA is a gene. And so what parents transfer to us, they don't just transfer. So let's say this is a gene, for instance, now. Let's say this is a gene. Parents are not just going to cut a segment and transfer it to us. No, they transfer the entire gene to us. And that's why you notice that even though it could be a little bit different expressions, which I'm still going to explain, but you notice that if you either choose your father's color or choose your mother's color, now you may now not be as fair as your father eventually, but it is obvious that you have a skin color. You may choose the set of his teeth, and it may not look exactly the same, but anytime anyone sees you, they know that you have your father's set of teeth. It is simply because your father gave you the gene for those traits. Um, Now, both parents gives the gene. Don't confuse it. Both, it is not all the genes. It is not both genes that will be expressed most of the time. The gene that is expressed, we call it dominant gene. The one that is not expressed, we call it recessive gene. I'll talk more about that when we get to uh, gene expression. All right, so again, genes are the unit of heredity, and they are made up of segment of DNA. You see that? Genes are passed to the next generation via reproductive cells, which we call gametes. Now, when we say gametes, you're talking about sperm and eggs, which are the product of meiosis. Most DNA is packaged into chromosome. Human have 46 chromosomes in the nuclei in their somatic cells. Now, in the regular cell, that undergo mitotic division, somatic cells. So in a way, when we look at it, we say mitosis is somatic cells, meiosis is reproductive cells. So that's the way you can tag it in your notes. Mitosis only happen in somatic cell, and somatic simply means body cells. Whereas meiosis only happen in reproductive cells, which are the gametes, right? Gametes. And we say that meiosis happen in germ cells. Germ cells are the one that will give rise to the gametes. All right, so a gene-specific location on the chromosome is called locus. Locus is simply where you will find a gene on the chromosome. So let's say that, like what I was using before now, or if you go to a mall, you usually see this screen on the at the entrance of the mall that tells you where everything is going to be, right? That is telling you the locus, and think about locus location. It's telling you the locus of that gene there. Now, in asexual reproduction, a single individual passes all of his genetic information to the offspring. But in sexual reproduction, the two parents will fuse together. The sperm and the egg, the nucleus of the sperm and the egg fuse together, or the nuclei of the sperm and the egg fuse together and give rise to the next offspring. All right, you can look at this. This is now, like I told you earlier, human somatic cells, which are general body cells, they undergo mitosis and they have 23 pair of chromosome, which is 46, and that's why we call them diploid. Don't forget, I'm going to type that here again. We call them diploid. We say they are diploid. Oh, I made a mistake here. Can I go back? Okay, I'm just going to cut it off. So we say they are diploid. I'm going to retype it there. So we say those cells are diploid organisms. They are, diploid cells because they have 46 chromosome or 23 pair of chromosome. Now, if you look at this we call it karyotype. And that's exactly what I was talking about, that when you get to a mall, you are going to if you get to a mall, you are going to see a a screen that tells you, okay, these are the store in this mall, and it will also tell you the location of the mall. This is what that looks like. We call it karyotype. It tells you the list of all chromosomes in the body and their locations. And so it makes it quite easy to study any chromosomal abnormality, because once you are able to generate the karyotype, you can see which chromosome is it's affected. Either there is chromosomal breakage, translocation, or whatever. You could see it just by looking at it. By looking at the karyotype, you can see if a chromosome is missing, or if there's an additional chromosome. We could talk about chromosome Down syndrome, right? Is when there is abnormality in chromosome 21. So those are things. So if you look at this is first position, this second position, third position, fourth position. So we look at it up to position 23. At position 23, that is where you have the chromosome. This is position 23. And that is why you have the chromosome, which are the sex chromosome. So chromosome 1 to 22 are somatic. So 1 to 22, we call them somatic. They are autosomes rather. So we call them autosomes. We call them autosomes. All right. And then chromosome on position 23. Now, 1 to 23 means 1, 2, 3. So that means 1 to 23 pairs, right? Maybe I should put pairs there. 1 to 23 pairs, we call them autosomes. And position 23, we just call them sex chromosomes. Sex chromosomes. Now, the sex chromosomes, for male, it is XY. And for female, don't mind the way I'm writing, I'm using my mouse. So for males, it is XY, and for female, it is XX. And that's so if you look at this chromosome 23 here now, you can tell that this gender is a male, right? So let's say something happened, they can't trace anything about this gender, they can just analyze the chromosome and they can tell, okay, this person, let's say there's a crime scene, they met people, they met some structures there, and they maybe the person has been killed. They can't tell anything. They are trying to see who are these people. One of the way to get them is to check the gender. So they do karyotype. Doing karyotype, on karyotype, you can tell what is the gender of this individual. Is this individual a male or a female? Because the karyotype on position 23 is going to tell if it is XX. If it is XX, of course, you know that's a female. If it is XY, you know that is a male. So that's the way karyotype works. Let's go. All right. Now, the two chromosomes in each pair now, we call it homologous chromosomes. So when you look at this place, for instance, in position 1 now, we say the chromosomes there are homologous chromosome. Position 2, we say the chromosomes are homologous chromosome because they are the same set of chromosome. It's just like if you say this chromosome, these chromosomes 1 and chromosome 1, they are the same. It's that one is from a father, the other one is from a mother. And that is just the way it is. And so any of the genes in the chromosome can be expressed depending on which one is going to be the dominant or which one is going to be the recessive. Okay. Um, so the chromosome, which homologous chromosome simply means that they are the same position, they have the same size, and most likely the same shape. So they are in the same position, the same size, they have the same set of genes in the locations. That's what we call homologous chromosomes. All right. So you see, that is what you have here. Chromosomes that have the same length, they have the same length, they have, so you see, homologous chromosomes have the same length, they have the same centromere position. Like you remember from chapter 12, centromere is the point where the chromosome sister chromatids join together. And they have the same staining pattern. So you expect that the genes are located in the same location. All right. They also carry genes. You see that controlling the same inherited traits. So if this chromosome is bearing the height, the gene for height, this same chromosome in that position will also bear it, except that one is from father, one is from mother. All right. Now, okay, I'll talk about that. So the sex chromosome which determine X, the sex chromosome, sex of the individual is called X and Y. And I told you in female, we say that the chromosomes are homologous. Homologous means okay, we say that the homologous, okay, I already explained what homologous mean, right? In females it's X and Y, X and X, and in males it is X and Y. So we usually say that males are hemizygous. I'll tell you what hemizygous mean. If you remember the word hemisphere, hemizygous simply means that we males only have one of each. It doesn't have two. Two means they have two of the same copy. But now male only have one of each copy. Now there's disadvantages with that. The disadvantage is this. If there's a disease that is carried on an X, that means any male that have that disease will be really affected because it means that all the X are affected. That's what it means, even though it's just one hex, but it means all. It's just like if I have a phone now and I lose that phone, I have lost all my phone. I lost my phone. But if somebody have two phones and just lose one, the person still have phone because the person just lost one phone. So if I have one phone and lose it, but you have two phones, you lost one, you still have a phone. So if there is a disease or if there's a dysfunction on one of your phone, the other phone will still work. But if there's a dysfunction on my phone, then my phone is gone. Think about it. If you have a car, if your car develops fault in the morning when you are ready to go to work or to school, that means you cannot go to school because there's no car. But if you have two cars, if one is bad, the other will likely work. So that's actually the difference between male and female when it comes to some diseases that affect sex chromosome. If a disease affects sex chromosome and it's affecting X particularly, in females, if it's affecting one X, the other X is fine. That woman or that female is only a carrier for that disorder. The woman is not going to be affected a lot. But if it affects one X in female, in male, the man will be showing symptoms for the disease. And I'll be talking about that later more. So let's go. That I just thought to point that to you. So we say males are hemizygous. This is it. Don't mind me the way I wrote it. So the remaining 22 pairs, we call them autosomes, which I showed you. Autosomes are number 1 to 22 pairs, and number position 23, which are 2 chromosomes there, are the sex chromosome. Let's go. So I already told you what diploid and haploid is, so I'm just going to continue. Now, I had also told you what gametes are. I've told you that they are haploid, and that is actually what meiosis produces, right? Egg is the same as ovum, and the sex chromosome in egg is usually X or X. So think about it. The female only have X and X. So when they want to reproduce, what can they give? They can give X. They cannot give anything else other than X. So is it that they give X or they give another X, but it's still X. Now, but in males, the sperm can either be X sperm or Y sperm. If it is X sperm, then the X sperm will meet with the Y. So if a female give X, of course, the female can only give X. And the male also give X, then it's going to be X plus X, and the child is going to be a female. But if it is male, if the female give X, of course, female can only give X, and the male give Y, then the child can be X, Y. And so we call that is what I'm showing you on that slide. Let's go. All right. So this just shows you what it means when we say different chromosomes coming together from different parents. So you see, this is the male. I mean, this is the female, the maternal chromosome. This is the paternal. And by the time they will later divide, go through mitosis, meiosis, we'll talk about that. Let's go again. All right. Now, fertilization simply means the union or the fusion of the sperm with sperm nucleus and the female egg together. When the sperm fertilizes the egg, that is fertilization. The nuclei will be fused together and it will form a diploid cell. So this is what you see here. This is fertilization here. You notice that when you look at it here, this is the egg, which has 23 chromosomes, or we use the word N. We use N. And this is the sperm. Again, it has 23 chromosomes. We use N as well. So N plus N is going to give you what we call it by fertilization, right? It's going to give you diploid zygote, which is 2N. All right. Then the zygote here, this is what is produced when there's fertilization. This zygote then now go ahead and undergo mitosis, which will produce this man and this woman. Now, the man and the woman, we again undergo meiosis now. And then their germ cells will now produce the sperm and the egg again through meiosis. So again, egg and sperm fertilize, produce zygote. The zygote, general body cells, again undergo mitosis, division mitosis, give rise to the male and female. Then they undergo meiosis to produce egg and sperm again. And that is a cycle. All right, I've talked about this. The ovary and the testes produce haploid gametes. The gametes are the only type of human cells produced by meiosis. You see that? Rather than meiosis. Meiosis results in one set of chromosomes in each gamete, and that's why I call it reductional division. Fertilization and meiosis alternate in sexual life cycle, and that's what I just showed you, how meiosis happen, mitosis happen, meiosis happen, and it goes in that way. All right, so this is the same thing showing it to you again. Alternation of generation, how they alternate between diploid and haploid. That's what we call alternation of generation. So meiosis happen. This is in code mouse. Meiosis happen and produce the sperm and the egg. The sperm and the egg will fertilize each other and produce zygote. The zygote again undergo mitosis, the same thing. So it's the same thing through the life cycle generally. All right, we've talked about that, so I'll just keep it. We've talked about alternation of generation. All right, that's the same thing. Okay, so in most fungi and some protists, the only diploid state in them is the single cell zygote. There's no multicellular diploid stage after the zygote produce haploid cell by meiosis. Each haploid cells grow by mitosis into haploid cells. So it's still the same thing we've explained. Let me see if there's anything else I want to touch on that before I go ahead and look at the stages of meiosis itself. Okay, so I'll be talking about the linkage between mitosis and meiosis now. Then I'll go ahead and talk about the stages of meiosis itself, which is simple. If you understood mitosis, you won't have any stress as well here. You just need to differentiate the stages. So I think I will pause this video now and start another one so that it's not so long.